Hi everyone. So for some reason I just recorded this video, part 3, and the file got corrupted. I have no idea, but I'm recording it again. The thing is, I'm annoyed because the file got corrupted. It's not the first time it's happened, but it's annoying when it does. I can already tell you that I don't quite understand everything he says on this one, but it is annoying. Sorry, I thought I heard a car. Okay, so this was a donated request from YouBuyWeRush. This is the explanation of the Islamic belief. I have a thanks button on the channel. You can donate. You don't have to. Subscribe if you aren't, or if it's what you like. Click the thumbs up button. So I'm going to give this a second go, and I am annoyed. Not at the video. It doesn't get any easier to understand him all the time. Maybe a second time around it'll be a little easier, but we'll see.
He said because there is no doubt about the authenticity of these ahadith. So when you study this book in hadith, you don't have to worry about, like in Al-Bulugh or Mishkat or other books, or At-Tirmidhi or even those books, that is this hadith sahih, is it da'if? These are all ahadith of ahkam, and only from Bukhari and Muslim. And he wrote a bigger Umdat al-Ahkam, which has books from hadith from other books as well, also very beneficial books. And he also wrote a book, an amazing book in Ilm al-Rijal. It's called Al-Kamal fi Asma al-Rijal, where he collected the biographies of all of the narrators in the Sahih or Kutub al-Sitta, the 6 famous books of hadith. Now, I want to make some points for the youth. Ibn Qudama, at the age of 10, he had memorized the Quran, and at the age of 10, he traveled to seek more knowledge. How many of you sitting here are at that age or older? How many of you are dedicating your life to traveling and seeking knowledge, to memorizing Quran and memorizing mutun and memorizing ahadith? And this shows...
Okay, so I said this last time. We're all from different areas, so gathering, gaining knowledge is different for everybody. For me, I love presidents. I love the American Civil War. I love Revolutionary War, War of 1812. I enjoy reading about those people because I enjoy the presidents, because I enjoy gaining that knowledge. It doesn't mean that it's less because it's not what he would want. But we have different approaches to what I want to learn and what he wants me to learn. It's just, we're all different. We all gain knowledge differently. The knowledge that he's wanting you to gain would be Quran, religion-esque type of stuff, while me, it's presidents, it's history, stuff like that. You're still learning history with what he's talking about, but there is a religious aspect to it, while I'm just learning about a country's aspect. It doesn't make one better than the other, in my opinion. It just, it's just a different approach.
That those great ulama that we still remember and benefit from, they didn't waste their youth. Because it's your life. You can spend it in 3 different aspects or things. 1, in the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in gaining knowledge, in benefiting yourself. And it's your choice. Don't wait for your parents or your elders to force you. You have to make that choice. So you can spend your youth in that beneficial knowledge, and you will be from the ulama, inshallah, like Ibn Qudama, who is dead, he has passed away, and he's getting all these good deeds from us, reading his books and benefiting from him. Imagine how much reward he's getting till today. Or you can be from those who waste their life in mubah, in those things that there is no benefit in, even if there is no sin in them. And your life will be gone, and you will have benefited nothing from it. Or, and may Allah protect us all, you can be from those who spend your time in haram. And not only will you waste your life, but then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will hold you accountable. And know that youth, when you are young, this is a time that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will especially hold you accountable for. One of the 4 questions mentioned in the hadith about the people standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment is how you spent your youth. Even though your life is questioned later in the same hadith. But because the youth is something that is so often wasted, it is especially questioned about by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ibn Qudama, he kept good company. And that's why you will see his nephew.
If you spend your youth still in school learning, you are gaining knowledge. If you also use your free time to participate in sports and stuff like that, you're learning something. You are learning teamwork. You're learning various kinds of things. You're also keeping yourself in good shape. I don't think there's a negative aspect to that. If you spend your time ditching school and doing drugs, a little different. But you can still learn things even if it doesn't seem like it's something you could learn.
Nephews, his cousins, all his friends were pious and were people of knowledge. And that is why they benefited so much. Ibn Qudama, Muwaffaquddin Ibn Qudama writes about Abdul Ghani al-Maqdisi. He says about him, he was my sahib fi rihlatul ilm. He was my companion in my journeys for knowledge. And he would compete with me always in doing good.
You also have to understand that we are living in different times where we have a variety of other things that could occupy our time. You could still read, you could go to a movie, you could do this. Back in those days, what did they have? Books. And skipping rocks. Like, you didn't have a whole lot of options. People like second president John Adams, who was also the first vice president under George Washington. The only vice president, but the first vice president, and he was the second president. He was all about the law and politics. Because to him, everything else was a waste of time. But that was his belief. That was his core, was because the world was founded on those principles. To him, it didn't make his kids wrong if they didn't have interest in that. They had interest in other things. Unfortunately, his kids had interest in drinking, and they suffered because of it. But one son, John Quincy, went on to become the 6th president, but he's tremendously gifted person who gained a lot of knowledge, spoke a bunch of different languages, went to a ton of different countries. You know, it's a different time that we're living in. Now, it doesn't mean that you still can't live that way, but you have to understand we're not set up that same way.
They would have competition.
Not everywhere. Some places, yes. Not everywhere, though.
And not who's going to win Minecraft or in some other stupid video game. They would compete with each other in who will memorize a book of hadith first, who will finish the Quran first, who will sit in more halaqat of ilm, who will gain more knowledge.
You also have to have those people who share those same beliefs around you. The people who want to do those things. Not everyone does. You know, my childhood growing up, not very many people that I was around shared none shared the exact same interest that I had in virtually everything. So you almost have to pick and choose. Back then, there wasn't a whole lot of options. Not many people were going to run around and playing soccer if it didn't even exist. You were going to play baseball. It didn't exist. You read books because books existed. You focused on your religion because religion was important. Not saying it isn't today, but I'm saying that we had far less distractions back then. So you could focus a little bit more. The world is bigger now in terms of more distractions, more things to get involved with. So you have to find those people who share those same beliefs as you and those core beliefs to have good people around you. But to have that core belief is difficult today. It's probably easier back then because there was less things to occupy your time. To
who will
distract you.
understand the book of Allah
Less things to distract you, sorry.
more, who will pray and make more adhkar. That's the good things they would compete in. And that points to a second point that I want to focus on, which is keeping good company. You look at Abdul Ghani al-Maqdisi, amazing scholar. You look at Muwaffaq bin Ibn Qudama, amazing scholar. Why? Because they protected each other. They were accompanied with each other. They encouraged each other. So keep good and pious friends, so you can encourage each other towards good. Al-Imam Muwaffaquddin ibn Qudama, rahmatullah alayh, he continued to travel with Abdul Ghani al-Maqdisi. They traveled and they got ijazat and asanid from great scholars like Al-Hafid Ibn al-Jawzi. Ibn al-Jawzi al-Hanbali, the great scholar who wrote Tablis al-Iblis, about the tricks of shaitan, who wrote many, many famous books, who Al-Dhahabi writes about him that no scholar wrote as many books as him. Zad al-Masir, his famous tafsir, the great scholar, the one who started the madrasa that Ibn al-Qayyim's became, his father was the caretaker, and that's why he's called Ibn al-Qayyim, the son of the caretaker of al-Jawziyah. Al-Jawziyah was his madrasa. So he traveled to Baghdad to study with these scholars. At the age of 20, he had finished his learning from the ulama of Damashq, and he went to Baghdad, which was another center of knowledge. And he studied from Abdul Qadir al-Jailani, Ibn al-Jawzi, Ibn Battah, al-Baghdadi, al-Hanbali, and other ulama of Baghdad. And then he traveled to Mecca, and he studied from the scholars of Mecca. And he traveled to Medina and studied from the scholars of Medina. And he traveled to the Muslim lands and studied from those ulama of those different lands. Al-Hafidh Ibn Kathir, the famous Mufassir who wrote Tafsir Ibn Kathir, he said about him that he was the Shaykh of Islam. He was the Shaykh of the Muslimin at the time, the Shaykh of Islam, an Imam, an Alim, Al-Hafidh, who was exceptionally proficient. He was exceptionally, even amongst ulama, he was exceptional. And that's why I would say that Ibn Qudama is one of the most underrated ulama of our time. One of the greatest ulama that most Muslims don't even know about. And that's why Ibn Abbas rahmatullah alayhi is saying, if you wrote the greatest book of fiqh ever written, and you go to an average student of knowledge here in our country here that we're living, and they will not know who he is. They may have heard his name, but they will not really know him. And that is our sad state of affairs. He said, we did not find, Ibn Kathir writes about him, we did not find anyone in his time or before it since the time of the Salaf. Ibn Kathir is saying about him, that since the time of the Salaf, up to his time, we did not find anybody possessing more fiqh than him. He wrote a lot of works on the madhab, yani the Hanbali madhab, on its branches and its principles, and in the sciences of hadith, and in language, yani in the Arabic language, in nahu, and in zuhud, and in those things that soften the hearts. And his writings in usul al-din and usul al-fiqh are of the highest quality. And his works were based upon the methodology of the muhaddithin. A very beautiful statement. Ibn Kathir is saying that his works are based on the methodology of the people of hadith. They are filled with ahadith and athar and asanid. And when he wrote, he didn't just say, it's this way. We pray this way. We do it this way. No. He would discuss the proofs and the sanad of the ahadith and the athar of the salaf, of the sahaba, the sayings and the ahadith and their authenticity and their weakness and their strength and what is stronger and weaker. And they resembled the works of Imam Ahmad and the scholars of hadith. This is the saying of Ibn Kathir about him. Imam Ibn al-Najjar described him as a thiqah, a trustworthy narrator, a noble person of high morals, of a great adl. So he was great in dhaq and adl, the two things you look at in rawis, in hadith as well. An extremely generous person, known for his good character. Ibn Najjar said about him, he was extremely generous and a person famous for good akhlaq. Many students of knowledge today, they consider themselves students of knowledge, but they won't even smile at a brother when they see them. They won't even help somebody when they need help. They won't lower themselves. They're only worried about how they can brag and how they can boast and how they can try to promote themselves over others and find the faults of others. Those should go and look at the ulama of the past and how they were. He was somebody who was a dedicated abid, a great worshipper, a follower of the Salaf al-Salihin in their manhaj, in their methodology. He was an illuminating light of knowledge and piety. This is the words of Ibn Najjar, to the meaning of the translation. And he had the best of manners with people. A person would benefit from seeing him before even hearing him speak. Subhanallah. This is a deep statement. A person would benefit from seeing him before even hearing him speak. So before he would start narrating hadith or teaching fiqh, just from looking at him, from the nur that Allah gave him, from the good akhlaq that he had with people, from the way he dealt, the way he moved, people would benefit from seeing him. Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali, the great scholar, he wrote about him. He said, Al-Faqih, Al-Zahid, Al-Imam, Al-Shaykh al-Islam, Ahad al-Allam. He said about him, he was a faqih. He was one of the greatest scholars in fiqh. He was a zahid, a great scholar in zuhud, a great imam, a leader of the Muslims, and a shaykh of Islam, and one of the flag bearers of Islam. Ibn Salah, the great scholar of hadith, he said, مَا رَأَيْتُ مِثْلُ الشَّيْخِ الْمُوَفَّقِ الدِّينِ. Ibn Salah al-Shafi'i, the great Shafi'i scholar and scholar of hadith, he said, out of all of my teachers, of all of the scholars I saw, I never saw anyone comparable to a Shaykh Muwaffaq, yani Ibn Qudama. There are many praises that have been mentioned about him by the ulama of Islam. But I will end here with just a few highlights about his life. When it came time for Muwaffaq to take up the sword and defend the land of Islam against the Crusaders from Europe, he didn't just rely on his pen, he stood up and he defended the land of Islam. When it was time for him to speak the truth, he never feared speaking the truth. Taqiyuddin ibn Taymiyyah, rahmatullah alayhi, he said about him that nobody possessed more fiqh than Muwaffaq al-Din in Sham from the time of Al-Awza'i till his time. Al-Awza'i, the great imam who had his own mother. From that time, out of all of the great ulama of Sham, nobody had more fiqh than him. So when it came to fiqh, he was from the greatest scholars of fiqh. When it came to hadith, he wrote one of some of the most beneficial books of hadith. And he encouraged his students to be ulama as well. And I'll mention a few points, and then we'll end for today. His nephew, Baha'uddin al-Maqdisi, and he is the author of Al-Uddah. He wrote the explanation of Al-Umdah. So he encouraged his own nephew to write a sharh of his own book. He didn't say, oh, that's my book. Why are you trying to explain it? You think you understand better than me? That's how people have ta'assub nowadays. They have partisanship. What? You want to explain my book? What, do you think it's not clear? No. He encouraged him. So Baha'uddin Abdul Rahman bin Ibrahim al-Maqdisi al-Hanbali, also from the same family, he wrote the book Al-Uddah, the standard sharh of Muwaffaq al-Din ibn Qudama's book Al-Umdah, and he was his own nephew. And when Ibn Qudama wrote Al-Mughni, he wrote it as a sharh of Al-Khiraqi. And Al-Khiraqi was a very old book, the first matan. But the standard to teach the Hanbali madhab in his time became Al-Mughni, Al-Muqni. Ibn Qudama's book Al-Muqni became the standard. So his other nephew, and he is Shamsuddin Abdul Rahman bin Muhammad bin Ahmad ibn Qudama al-Maqdisi al-Hanbali, also from the same family, he asked permission to rewrite his book Al-Mughni following the abwab of Al-Muqni. So the book Al-Mughni was written by Ibn Qudama, the greatest book. But it was difficult for the madaris because they were now teaching Al-Muqni as a standard text, and Al-Mughni was written to follow Al-Khiraqi. So his own nephew was given permission to rewrite his book Al-Mughni but now following the abwab of al-Muqni', and he did that adding some of his own fawaid, and that is called al-Sharh al-Kabir, the great Sharh of al-Muqni'. Al-Muqni' of Ibn Qudama became also a standard to know the madhab, and that is why al-Mirdawi, he wrote al-Insaf, discussing all of the opinions of the madhab based on the abwab al-Muqni'. And one of the great scholars of our time, Dr. Abdullah bin Abdul Muhsin al-Turki, may Allah reward him, Dr. al-Turki, he put together the book Al-Muqni' of Ibn Qudama with Al-Sharh al-Kabir of Al-Shamsuddin al-Maqdisi with Al-Insaf of Al-Mirdawi in one book. And one of the brothers, may Allah reward him, he gifted it to me, I benefit from it a lot. It's 32 volumes now. So Al-Muqni' to know the standard opinion, Sharh al-Kabir to know all the dalail, and Al-Insaf to look at the differences. So we see Ibn Qudama, he also encouraged his family members and his students to become scholars themselves, and he never felt awkward if somebody used his work to write their works to benefit the ummah when there was a benefit from it. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to let us benefit from the book of this great scholar, and we should know the scholars we study from and why we study from them and what they did for the ummah. So we use this as a muqaddamah, as an introduction to this dars and this series of durus. Inshallah, in the next dars, next week, we'll begin with the matan, with the muqaddamah of Ibn Qudama himself. And it's a very important muqaddamah because there are many beneficial points, and we want to study the aqidah correctly, in detail, in the light of the Quran and the Sahih Ahadith. So I encourage all of the brothers and sisters to be steadfast in these durus, inshaAllah ta'ala. Jazakumullahu khairan.
So the second time around was not any easier. I think what I understood. What I didn't, I just didn't. So for the second time, I will end this video by apologizing for not understanding everything. I don't know. I don't know if it was just the audio. I don't know if it's the accent. I have no idea. Just some of it's just very difficult. But hopefully it'll save now. Because if not, I'm going to be very upset. But you won't know. So until next time, have a good day, have a good night.